Today we're taking a look at Judges Guild's Guide to the City-State of the Invincible Overlord from 1976. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer. This is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. We're continuing our look at the products of Judges Guild with the Guide to the City-State of the Invincible Overlord. Hope you enjoyed today's video. So today's video takes a break from the regular installment series to look at an item that was specially released by Judges Guild, never included as part of the monthly or bi-monthly installment for their subscribers. This is a really key item from the early days. It's first produced in 1976, and it's the Guide to the City-State. It's a small booklet. It's basically legal-sized paper folded in half. It's got a really nice, heavier cover here, sort of a brown color with this artwork, and then chock full of text. Originally designed to be 40 pages, it ended up being 56 pages before Bob Bledsoe and Bill were done with all the detail that they provided in this item. So let's take a look. Comes at the very end of 1976. Bob Bledsoe and Bill Owen are given credit for this. The cost, it really depended on what you were trying to get. Could be $450, $850, $950. So let me explain that. The very first item produced by Judges Guild were the item number one is the City-State of the Invincible Overlord Judges Map. And these were great big maps, like 30-something by 40-something in size. 2 different pages, I think they were, maybe more, to fit it all together because of the way it was printed. And you may remember me mentioning they sold these things at the very first Gen Con when they were promoting their company. They'd sell you these really cool maps of the city together with this idea of becoming a subscriber. You could also get a smaller version of the map for players that had less detail, and you could get a smaller version later on of the map that had the judges in more detail but a smaller size. And then you had the booklet, the Guide to the City-State, right? And you can see in the parentheses here, I've got the item number from the booty list of what those were. So if you got the Guide to the City-State together with the 17 by 22 maps, that would, and you added just separately bought each of those things, that would be $4.50. If instead of the 17 by 22 you wanted the really big 34 by 44 size maps, then that would cost you $8.50. And then they had a bundle they sold for $9, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, where you'd get the 17 by 22 map, you get the 34 map, you get the Guide of the City-State, and you'd also get the booklets from, I think it's I and J, that had all kinds of reference information in it as well. So different ways you could have acquired it back in the day. So you would have this one-page cover sheet. If you got the $9 version, you get this cover sheet. It tells you get the huge judges map, the slightly smaller players map, the booklet, Thunderhold. You remember that map of the Dwarven Kingdom that's to the north. The 2 booklets, and then 10 levels of dungeons. Those are the dungeon levels that they produced in I and J. And you can see the videos. I'll put a link here for those installment videos that we did where we talked more about those specifics. All right, so you get this, it's in a plastic bag, you have this cover sheet, and then behind it you're going to have this booklet, the City-State of the Invincible Overlord Guide. Come back to that. This big map, and we'll show you more detail in a minute. This has all kinds of detail written in for you, the judge. Or you might get this version, if you're a player, which gives you the outline of the city, but lots and lots of emptiness where you would have to go through, I think, with pencil and mark, or however you wanted to figure it out to know where this different stuff is over time. And then we have the booklet. Now, on the booklet, this is the version that came out in 1976. It's the very first version of that. It's the only one that sort of looks like this, but there's several iterations of this. Later on, they do this version, which is a full-size, sort of 8.5 by 11 sized booklet. And then they do another printing of that. And we'll talk at the end of the video about a little bit of the extra detail that comes out in these booklets. Then they did this version, which has the orange cover. And these all are approved for use with Dungeons and Dragons. And then there's a final printing. And down here in the bottom left, you'll see it says for the Universal Fantasy Supplement, because when they make this final printing of this guide, they no longer have the D&D license. But today we're focusing just on the original one, not the later iterations. We'll do separate videos to talk about those. So here's some detail of the map, and I'll get myself out of the way So you guys can see this a little more clearly. This is sort of off to the side of the map. There's a lake. There's some dwarven mines, the troll fens, burial grounds, a quarry. And then we get into the city itself. So here's the, I don't know if it's the bottom half or top half. The map was made so you could sort of spin it around. But there's a very large citadel in the Overlord's pastures and a stadium here on the left side of the map. And you can just sort of see how it's laid out. And now I'll show you a little bit more detail of that. Right, so you can just see there's a throne room, stables, guest manors. The streets are labeled. Some of the buildings are labeled, right, but not all of them. There's a park here. The Plaza of Profuse Pleasures is this big circle. And then right on one side of it, the Rent-a-Slave area, or the Dancers. And you can go down this diagonal street called Hedonist Street and get all kinds of fetish. There's a fetish shop and a torture shop and a puppet shop, and on and on. And here's another section of the map. This one brings you down towards the side of town where you get into a lot of stuff that has to do with the seagoing. Because remember, this is a large river that takes you out into the sea. The city is located. And so all kinds of interesting there. Here's another section of the map, just again to show you the detail. And again, this is the judge's map. So where nothing's written in, there is no information about that. That's left for the judge to fill in later, and whatever he or she wants to do there. Down at the very bottom of this map, you'll see all this stuff that has to do with nets and boats repairs, sails, other supplies for your boats. Here's the other side of the map, pulled back so you can just sort of see the whole thing. And again, at the bottom, a couple really cool things. You get the Wild Orcs of the Purple Claw. And off to the right side, you get something called the Goblin Reservation, the Despot Ruins, all kinds of fun stuff already right there near the city-state that you could get into. And again, just for those who are interested, here's just a little bit more detail of that. I like this one here. It's got the Temple of the Spider God, the School of Ancient Knowledge, Gate of the Gods. Then down here you've got the Temple of the Gargoyle, the Pig and Whistle Inn, I believe that is. You've got places for Thieves Guild and other types of guilds, merchants, all kinds of different shops. Here's the Square of the Gods, the Temple of Thoth the Terrible, Temple of Odin, Temple of Harkmachus, and the Hellbridge Temple. Some of those obviously we recognize the Pantheon, but others are unique. And here's all kinds of just different shops you might go to. I like this one, Slash Street. That does not sound like a place you'd want to spend your time at night, right? And we'll talk about this in a little more detail when we get to the booklet, but he's got all kinds of information about the streets, different random encounters that happen based on the street you're on, and you can definitely tell in his mind some places are more dangerous, some are more interesting, etc. Okay, so those are your maps. And lots of details, some of the best city maps. And remember, 1976, there was nothing like this, to my knowledge, out there for anybody yet, anywhere, in terms of a detailed city. And really early on, Bob has one of the great campaigns, right? We've all heard of Greylock, we've all heard of Blackmoor. Those are fantastic. But Bob Bledsoe really fleshed out a whole campaign, and in future videos, as we talk about, like the next installments are the Wilderlands and its area around, on the world map around the city. And he really starts to flesh out this whole campaign area where you could put whatever adventures, the judge wants to get into. But anyway, for today, it's the city, it's home base. This is the guide to the city-state. Here's the inside, Bob and Bill Owen, copyright 1976. The first page, and it has this map and starts to give you a little bit of background about the city. But here's the map, and so the thing I want to point out is, the dots or the gray area is the city, and the orange circle shows you where the city-state of the Invincible Overlord is. Even now, he knows about the city-state of what's later called the World Emperor, which is to the west, and that's, they say in here, the only place that he has to pay any tribute is to him. But we've got an equator here just a little bit south, and look at these great places around for future development. This says the Elephant Lands, the Great Forest, the Valley of the Ancients, the Kingdom of Karak, the Desert Lands, the Sea of the Five Winds, the Isle of the Blessed, Right south of them, we have the barbarian Altanus, and that'll be in a future coming up pretty soon. And then the Ganor Highlands down to the landmass to the south. So here's lots of detail. He starts off with about the history of the city-state, the different rulers they had, where they know of history, where they don't know of history. They've discovered this obelisk that sort of helps as your reference point for all these different. They got these great list of rulers, right? We've got various time periods, the shifting lands, the toppled megalith, the shifting suns, cataclysm of the turtle, the lost beast, the serpent people, the great migration, the barbarous horde, the false wars. And so he's got all these different time periods, which I instantly thought, even the names are evocative, so maybe you would have some type of temporal time thing where your players go back to a key moment in history and could become part of that ancient event that's so important. Or you could just steal those ideas and use one of those in your home campaign as an idea for what's happening in the world. And then we've got the kings in sort of 52-year cycles, and some of them are etched out, so he's got this realism in there, right, where some of the names are broken off on the obelisk. But we've got like Kulkakin the Preserver, Itzlazam the Strong, Golden Anathesm, Akin, Chain the Wizard, Queen Alminia, on and on. All these different names for the rulers through history. And then we get into the key part of the book, which is just lots and lots of detail. And so these little dark lines show you're going to a different street. And the first thing you have on each street is the unique probability. So here's Barter Street. There's a 38%, so you roll a random encounter like you normally would in the city. And on the next turn, you roll this. 38% chance of being surrounded by street urchins demanding a copper piece to go away. The next one down is Beggar Street. 70% probability of a beggar accosting you, asking for alms for some money for the poor. And then within that, you've got specific buildings he wants to point out. Like in Barter Street, we've got Balrog's Eye. In Crusty Bibulus is the patron of that. And we've got Booty and Strap. And Karugi the One Eye is the bootmaster at that store. And then on, right? We've got constables, taverns, someone who can make some predictions about the future, someone who will make a lock for you, a tavern, an ale shop, another tavern, and it goes like that. And so then it's just page after page, and this is what it's like. There's a location that you would find on the judge's map. There's a key person, NPC, who's in there with some stats. And his are usually some class, fighters, for the most part, some magic users. Occasionally you might get something else. And a little bit of information about them, maybe if they have a special magic item, maybe something about their personality or their motivation, whatever it would be. And you just get street after street. This goes on for 40 plus pages of just incredible detail that he went through and made up for this. And I think the city makes sense. The layout is fairly logical. What is where? He's got some pretty good sense of what would make up a medieval city. So again, 40 some pages of that. And then when you get to the back of the book, again, this is like page 51 of, I think, 56, some specific guidelines and rules. So one thing, you have a probability of if you're a noble. And so he had this whole thing about class where you'd find out what class your character, class within society, not fighter, magic user class, that you were, social ranking, I think he called it, or social level. But it's just nobles are frequently granted privileges and duties. And so if you make it to the noble class, then you roll. And sometimes you would maybe be given a group of soldiers. You'd be asked to give a loan. Maybe he'd give you some money. Maybe he'd appoint you to a military campaign. Maybe all your duties would be revoked, or all your boons, meaning the good things, would be taken away. So just some random things going on around the city. Got 2 pages here to tell you about women. So when you have random female encounters, you roll to see their level within society, anything particular about them, the color of their hair, height, other statistics are all given here. This is clearly somewhat of a male-centric mentality of who your players are going to be or who your characters are going to be. But that's, I think probably the stereotype back in the day for better and worse. There's proclamations that can be made. There's a council for high treason, and then there's a little bit of information about the calendar. So that's basically the detail. Like I said, there's lots. This book it's really fantastic in terms of how flushed out this city-state is. So there's the end of the city-state, and as he says, there's the booklets there that give you all kinds of rules. There's an index at the back to tell you where certain key things would be, and there's the booty list. And again, here the booty list at this point only goes to number 17. And here's how you could get pieces of this. Number 1 for $4.50, that's the large maps. Then the smaller size player map for 50 cents. And then the smaller size judges map. And again, the smaller size is 17 by 22. It's still pretty darn big, 50 cents. And the guide booklet just by itself, $3.50. And then they had the combo pack, and I showed you the cover page you'd get in a plastic bag. This is what they would have sold in a store for $9. And you'd get the guide to the city-state, the large size map for the judge, the smaller size map for the players, Thunderhold map, Sunstone Caverns, 9 dungeon levels, and the guides I and J all shoved in there. So it was quite the packaging. But again, I mean, $10 for the D&D rules, $9 for this expansion. Not the cheapest thing in the world, but certainly you can see a lot of effort was put into making this. And if you were a young judge, referee, dungeon master who wanted a city and didn't want to make it up yourself, I mean, here you're going to get a very, very good one right out of the bag. So that's it for our look at Judges Guild's Guide to the City-State of the Invincible Overlord. One of the very first and very best early days campaign settings for your home base if you wanted a city to place your characters into. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Hope you're enjoying the series, and I hope you're subscribed. If you have friends who might be interested in our content, please send them our way. I hope they'll subscribe as well. Have a great rest of the day. Until next time, my friends, keep rolling 20s.